So yeah, that's the thing that most people don't consider. You know, when we're in the information age like we are, you know, you're dealing with all kind of different cleanses that are on the scene, and there's a lot of good products, a lot of good programs out. But the thing is if they don't address the issue of the 15 to 50 pounds of uneliminated waste, it's really a useless point. It's very, very pointless. And that's where we address the root of it. You know, we understand that the body, many of the nutrients and things that the body needs, the body is producing, only using the foods to help the body produce, you know, say calcium, magnesium, and so forth. But if your body is clogged with at least 10 to 15 to 50 pounds of uneliminated waste, the body's not going to be able to do that. So people need to understand that nutrition without cleansing is pointless. There is no nutrition without cleansing. Not if you've been in America, not if you've been eating on the standard American diet. So,
well, when you say cleansing, are you speaking of detoxification, or if not, then what are the differences?
Well, cleansing, detoxification, because surely we are in a toxic state. When you got, you know, stuff that's breeding, you got the candida, you have parasitic conditions, you have just waste. You know, pathogens, the breeding ground is almost like if you went to a creek or some toxic waste dump. That's the breeding ground for disease because there's nothing but poisons there. So you have a body that's full of poisons. It does need to, that detoxification needs to take place. So yeah, so the thing is the detoxification is removing poisons from the system. That and cleansing really is synonymous. But cleansing could really apply more to your general nutritional practices, you know, because I say that, you know, your foods, food lets your food be your medicine be your foods. So really the foods that you eat every day should be foods that cleanse.
Is that so?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
So you shouldn't really, that's why I tell people, once you go through the raw Coloncleanse, you shouldn't really need a program after this. Because, you know, it would be good, like say, for example, to even take the psyllium husk fiber, but even after a point, you know, the foods that you're eating, navy beans, lentils, garlic, onions, broccoli, cauliflower, those are bulk fibers that are going to get into the intestine and sweep, you know, so you really wouldn't need to be constantly detoxifying if you really master that cleansing is proper nutrition. It's synonymous.
Okay, so this program that you just spoke about is for people who, you know, this is everyday maintenance, preventive maintenance.
Absolutely.
What do you say to those patients who have an acute manifestation of, you know, whatever they're dealing with?
Okay.
You know, how would the program apply to those individuals?
Well, you use, what was the term you used? You said preventive maintenance. It's kind of like our program is a rehab program and then preventive maintenance. So this is like when you go through alcoholism program or drug rehab, they're trying to remove the idea out of your mind and the drugs out of the system and then get you onto a normal life. Well, our detoxification, the 9-week program, is the rehab part. You know, focus totally on cleansing, because what many people will find out is that that when you remove the waste, the taste buds don't even crave the poison anymore. We have basically reprogrammed our taste buds to crave poison. So it's really more of an issue of removing the poison, and then the taste buds become natural again and start craving natural foods. That'll happen on its own. So a person with an acute condition, there is no acute condition, it's all the same. It's just a more chronic form of constipation. Somebody has a younger form of constipation, somebody has a chronic, which chronic means chronos, time. It took time to build to the point where it became acute. And even that person, that just means that they have an acute breeding ground for a disease. They need to empty out the waste and the toxins in the body to begin to repair. So there is no, you know, if they're still having bowel movements, we can help them.
Okay. All right. So, basically, the idea is to unclog the plumbing.
Absolutely.
get it flowing correctly
Yes.
again, so that the waste is going into the colon, but then it's adequately eliminated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which of course does not cause backup, which can manifest later on as more chronic issues.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
And the thing too is that if toxins are not eliminated, they go back. So what doesn't come out goes back into the system. And so now you have a circulatory system, blood that is trying to use toxic waste along with nutrients to build your new cells.
Okay.
So now you have cells that are built up of waste. This is what we call aging. Aging is nothing more than waste was still in the system, and the blood in the cells, the DNA started rebuilding the new cells with waste and nutrients. We're saying get rid of the waste, let the nutrients take hold, and then youth will begin to restore it to you. And that's how you see when people go through a detox, they look younger, they start looking better. And it's really not really that they're looking better, they look how they always should have looked, they just was covered up with waste. And we just did like a waste lift, not a facelift, but a waste lift. We lifted waste out of the system, and then they began to become new.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Well, doctor, if you could talk to us about you don't necessarily advocate the vegetarian lifestyle or the vegan lifestyle or the raw food, the raw vegan lifestyle, if you will.
Well,
can you address those points for us?
Okay. I don't advocate any forms of extremism, unscientific extremism. This is what I call it. The great naturopath, even though I never met him, I consider him a mentor in terms of his view. Professor Arnold Rett used to call these people faddists. It's the latest extreme fad. Mm-hmm. And so now everybody is doing this. But
yes, I noticed that. I noticed that.
They go on the internet or something, heard something, say some entertainer is doing this.
Yes.
Not everybody is doing this. But these are not people that have scientific knowledge of how the body works, scientific knowledge of nutrients and the intake and what the body actually needs. So I don't advocate, I myself am a vegetarian. I've been one since the age of 13.
Okay. So you're not necessarily advocating the eating of meat per se, but it's, in other words, the approach that you take is a scientific approach.
Right. Well, and sometimes it, like I mentioned, it's like a rehab. Sometimes it requires strategy. It requires gradualism. Mm-hmm. Like for example, in week 6 or 7 of the 9-week program, we have a feast where I prepare and then spread for the whole class. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, in this feast, not one time, I think except one time where I actually prepared meat, and it was fish. And it's not because I'm forcing them to be vegetarians, but most of us as meat eaters are familiar with meat recipes. We know how to cook meat. And it's because all of your food, the combinations are the same stuff: chicken and macaroni, fish and spaghetti, chicken and spaghetti, fish and macaroni and cheese. Steak and potatoes, hash browns and some type of meat. It's the same stuff. So I would like to broaden your horizons. And so, say for example, if I know that my students are eating fried chicken, I'll give them fried cauliflower. Same deal. They have children. You're not going to go home and tell your children, Dr. Talib said we can't eat meat. So now your children are going to hate me too, and I ain't here to teach them.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. The years that I was a vegetarian,
okay,
that instead of eating meats, of course, we had alternatives.
Okay.
One being eggplant.
Okay, eggplant is a good one. Yes.
Avocado.
Absolutely.
Even mushrooms. In some instances.
Okay.
I know that there are some programs that don't advocate the use of mushrooms in the diet for their reasons. Mm-hmm. One thing I also noticed over the years is I actually had the opportunity to go and sit down and have a meal at one of the Ayurvedic restaurants
Okay.
here locally, and I noticed that they still drink milk. And I thought to myself, well, these, I thought the entire idea of health and being a vegetarian was that you refrain from all forms of meat and dairy.
Okay.
Can you talk about that?
Good question. Glad you brought this up. So it's kind of like a second form of your first question, that I don't advocate veganism at all. I teach why veganism works, but I don't advocate it as a long-term diet.
Okay.
Even though I'm a vegetarian, I don't advocate vegetarianism, but I do mention it as the ideal, because we have something in the class that we call the vitamin chain of command, and I'll talk briefly about that. The vitamin chain of command is a term that Ra coined for the purpose of explaining how nutrients are actually absorbed. There's an order, a protocol of sorts, that how nutrients are absorbed into the system. You need, first vitamin D from the sun, so the non-food source,
yes.
Okay, which all the food that you're eating hopefully is getting it, you know. And then you need, believe it or not, vegans and others out there, the lactose from milk actually helps in the absorption of the two main nutrients that absorb vitamin A through Z, which is calcium and magnesium. Okay, they actually done studies where they had a group of rats over here, a group of rats, and both groups were fed vegetarian food, except one group wasn't fed dairy and the other was. And they had 98% greater absorption rate with the dairy than without. The reason being is because lactose absorbs magnesium, which absorbs calcium, which absorbs vitamin A through Z. If you don't have that, you don't have absorption. If you don't have absorption, you don't have nutrition. You just ate for nothing. So this is the scientific thing. Now I know, my vegan brothers and sisters would say, well, the cow produces milk from an animal, and we're the only species that drink milk from another animal. Well, there's scientific reasons why. Say for example, the beef in this culture is used as the main source of protein, right? But the way that the cow gets protein is from eating grass. But the grass is a digestible protein for the cow because he has 4 stomachs to digest it. You can't go and eat grass and digest it.
Are you sure? I mean, what about wheatgrass?
Well, that's a good question. But even those that eat wheatgrass, they typically use it in small dosages. Little, you've had it at the juice places in these little swigs, if you will.
Right. So essentially, you're saying that lactose is vital.
It's essential
as a link
Absolutely.
in the chain of the vitamins
Absolutely.
and minerals that we absorb into our system.
Exactly.
Do you know of any alternatives to lactose, or there simply is no substitute, for lactose?
Lactose means milk sugar. It is, that everything turns into sugar before it's communicated to the cells. Lactose is milk sugar. So the fact that a company could sell lactose-free milk is the most ridiculous idea ever. That's like saying...
You see it everywhere.
Yeah.
You see it.
Yeah.
In all of the major chain grocery stores, everything is what is it?
Lactose-free. Absolutely. And that's because of the scientific lie or the unscientific lie of lactose intolerance.
It appears that it defeats the purpose of drinking it.
It does.
If it's lactose free, then what are you drinking?
You're drinking a white leftover milk-looking product.
Okay.
Simple as that.
Same thing. Same thing is along the lines of eggs.
Yes.
They tout egg whites. Eliminate the yolk.
Right, but the yolk is where lecithin is. And highest food source of lecithin is egg yolks, and yet lecithin is responsible for removing debris off of the brain and also removing excess cholesterol and plaque from the arteries.
Really?
Now, I know we were told that egg puts cholesterol in the arteries.
Yes.
That is a complete falsehood. You see, these are the things that we teach, when we can give the scientific backing. I'll tell you what's interesting though, and I'm just gonna throw that out like Arsenio's to say things that make us go, All right. When the history of butter I use butter for it now. Butter was something that they started attacking, saying that it has high cholesterol and it produces buildup in the arteries. And they offered us margarine as the substitute, the more healthier substitute, right?
I remember
But what's interesting is that when margarine was introduced, more heart attacks occurred.
Yes.
Now, our grandparents, you know, who were going out in the morning getting milk and churning butter, there was no cases of heart illness that was related to cholesterol. If it was other stuff. But considerably increased amount of heart conditions once margarine was introduced into the equation and once eggs were taken out. See, you gotta remember those two things happen almost simultaneously. Eggs were beginning to be attacked and butter at the same time. So now you got margarine which actually does clog the arteries. Because it's not even a food, it's like one molecule away from being plastic.
And the studies prove that.
Yes.
We're talking about scientific
studies, not the opinion of Harun Talou. This is actual scientific fact. And so if eggs remove cholesterol, if you're eating something that's clogging the arteries and you take out of the diet the thing that removes stuff from the arteries, that can only equal a heart attack. So I have had no cases of, in fact, I got one student of mine who's almost 80 years old, and he was having cholesterol issues. And he started eating eggs again, and to his amazement, his cholesterol was lower.
Is that so?
And the doctors, kept trying to tell him to stop eating the eggs, but he had lower cholesterol after he started eating the eggs than before. So something is not clicking here. So, no, I don't say be a vegan. There are some benefits to the raw food diet, but it's not long-term benefit. It's only a laxative benefit of the fact that the body does not digest raw vegetation. If you were going to be a raw foodist, I would say be a fruitarian, but make sure that you have some milk somewhere in there so that you can absorb the nutrients from the fruit. You could do that. You could be a fruitarian and drink milk, and I would probably add a grain like whole wheat. You could live off of that probably indefinitely, because fruit is the best food. But as far as vegetation, raw vegetables do not digest in the system. We don't have the digestive juices to break down raw vegetables, which is, if you notice, when people start the raw food diet, they look really good at first. And it's because they're experiencing the laxative effect of the fact that the raw food couldn't stay in there. So the raw food works the same way as my product.
As a psyllium husk fiber.
It goes in,
yes.
It's already fiber, it's a bulk, so it's an intestinal broom, and it starts sweeping. They get elimination, they look better, they feel better. Well, yeah, you feel better than the constipated person that you were before. Sure, you look better, but that doesn't mean that that's healthy, because if you see them 10 years later, if you ever meet one that has ever survived the raw food diet, they don't look as healthy anymore. They start looking drawn in, looking really weak and frail. That's because now, after you've cleansed the body with the laxative effect of raw foods, now you need nourishment. And the body is craving for it. You're not drinking milk anymore because somebody told you that the body is not made to digest milk. You're not eating eggs, so you're not getting B12, which is responsible for red blood cell reproduction. So you're just a frail, cleaned out. It's just like you cleaned out, but you didn't put nothing back in there.
So you're not advocating for those who, do go with the raw vegan diet and they use it to sweep themselves out, but then, you're not saying that they should go back to eating the foods that they were eating before.
No.
They became a raw vegan. In other words, meats and...
Right, no, definitely not. But, and this is a big clause. I was surprised to hear Professor Honoret say this, that a meat eater that is who says, let's say he eats meat every so often. He might have lamb maybe once a month or something, fish the rest of the time, occasional chicken, but he's eating primary vegetation and fruit and getting dairy and not eating all day long. That person could actually be healthier than the vegan that's eating raw foods all day long, because there actually is nutrients in the vegetables cooked and the fruit and the milk. He's getting some second-hand absorption of the protein of the meat. Not primary, not ideal, but he's getting more than the raw vegan is getting, because the raw vegan is not getting any. It's just going in and out.
Well, I know there's a lot of people that are listening to this right now, and they're, they're ready to go on a rampage.
I'm sure they are, and I welcome any.
Yes.
Yeah, I welcome any open forum for debate or attack or whatever you would like to bring. But just let me warn you, the Coloncleanse is based on scientific knowledge, not philosophic knowledge.
Okay.
So if you're not ready with the science, don't even draw your sword, because I have the science to back up everything that I'm saying, and it's historic science. You just mentioned the Ayurvedic; that's from India.
Absolutely, and the Ayurvedic system goes back
at least 5, 6, maybe 7,000 years.
Yes.
And these are some of the most beautiful people on the earth. Mm-hmm. Their hair grows. In fact, people buy hair that is produced in that culture. So if milk and eggs were so damaging, how come their culture is not seeing the benefit or the lack of benefit from that?
So are you saying that in ancient Kemet, that the diet was or was not a raw vegan diet?
I say in no Afro-Asiatic or Afro-Asian or any indigenous culture was raw food ever the diet for us. Ever.
There's no documented proof.
No documented. If there is any documented proof, it's not long term, and the effects were not substantial enough for it to even be mentioned. Mm-hmm. But what we do have. In science, we like to use case studies. You take a group of people and you try this out, and a group of people try that out. Okay, what better group to use than a whole country? Here you have a whole population of, let's say, our Ethiopian brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. Some of the most beautiful from the continent, right? Beautiful skin, rich features, healthy teeth. Mm-hmm. These are not vegans, nor are they raw foodists. Okay? They cook their food.
Yes.
And they've been doing that. Even in the biblical times, it's mentioned, and I know some people would debate that the Bible is not accurate or whatever. But these people are following biblical principles, and they look good. They're healthy. Mm-hmm. Okay? Our Indian brothers and sisters, we just mentioned them. Even if you go to China and Japan and those parts of the world where they eat all kind of meats, these people still live way longer than a lot of raw foodists. I mean, you're talking about, even though they may be kind of frail because, certain meats shouldn't be eaten. But I'm saying you have a use of dairy and eggs and even meat in these cultures. Now, I'm not pushing the meat part. I'm not saying that the meat part is essential. I'm saying the dairy is. You could even exclude eggs, but the milk is a must that must be included.
Well, not only just the milk, but what about the I don't want to give away too much, but what about the effects or the need for probiotics?
I was hoping you would go to definitely fermented milk, yogurt, lassi. Let's go around the world with that.
Okay.
Then when they always study the places where people live the longest is the culture called Hunza. Mm-hmm. Hunza, the people in the Himalayan mountains that were chased up there. I believe it's history recorded. There's a book about it called The Hunza People. And I think it was Napoleon that chased them. It was during the war, and they went up and they stayed there. And they've been there, and these are some of the longest living people on the earth. Mm-hmm. Yogurt was developed in that culture because they didn't have the proper refrigeration of milk. So they would just keep it in vats, and it would ferment, and they noticed that in the fermenting, it picked up properties that ends up making them live longer than everybody else.
Okay. Is that right?
Yes, sir. In the Caucasus Mountains, where they claim yogurt originated. These people, yogurt, fermented milk, kefir. They used to use camel milk in the East to make kefir out of. The milk from camels, which is some very intelligent animals that are also vegetarians. Okay? In India, their probiotic fermented milk is called lassi, which is just basically a yogurt product. Same thing. The probiotic effect of yogurt, sour cream, cottage cheese, even cheese itself, feta cheese. If we mention the Greeks, which are, some of the best looking of the European people. Look at them, the hair, the features. They eat feta cheese, and they eat a lot of yogurt products too. They use ricotta cheese, which is kind of their version of a cottage cheese. The Italians do that too. So I'm saying you have whole cultures that These are not, find me one raw food culture. A country where for years and years and years, like how we can document with Ayurvedic medicine, take it 5,000-6,000 years back. Find me a raw food culture that was 5,000 to 6,000 years long, and the people thrived, and they were healthy, and they were beautiful.
Well, if you find one, then you'll also find that culture, state, that in other words that you would be able to find probiotics in fruits and vegetables.
Exactly.
Is that
possible? You will find you will find where like cabbage was fermented, which is called sauerkraut. That's a probiotic.
Okay.
You will find kabuka, which is or kombucha, it's pronounced both ways. It's a kind of a mushroom fungus that's used as a tea that's fermented. It's probiotics. But see, those probiotics are different from lactose. Is a difference in the probiotics that's produced in milk.
Okay.
Those probiotics are good too, but the lactose is essential. I will go to the grave saying this. Well, I won't.
Well, you're causing a lot of controversy.
I understand.
So essentially, you're saying that raw vegan is a relatively current phenomenon?
Very, very current. In fact, if you want to really do the history on it, it comes from the history of a people who didn't really have the knowledge of the use of fire. Now, I won't go into who that people is that'll raise any more hairs.
Okay.
But in all of the ancient cultures all of the ancient cultures that you marvel over, Egypt, and ancient Kemet, or Timbuktu, or Babylon, or any of the great civilizations, these were people, Indus Kush, these were people that were cooking their food. For our Christian brothers and sisters, in the biblical depiction of the angels visiting Abraham, he went and cooked them some food. He didn't bring out some trees and just say, here. No. But see, you got to understand, this is the opposite effect of extremism that we're dealing with, because in this culture, all the food is overcooked, fried, deep fried. I will agree with you, vegan, that the deep fried food destroys nutrients. We will agree that. That's our middle ground. But the only argument that's the only reason that you have an argument is because people are not properly cooking food. But don't say that cooking food is dangerous. That's an extreme, you went all the way to the other side now. What we're saying in the raw cleanse is properly cook your food. Apply some steam, lightly saute or blanch.
That you don't cook all of the nutrients out.
Exactly.
And doctor, we're already working from a deficit in the SAD diet, the standard American diet.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the soil, the soil that is used to grow the crops that end up on our table are already minerally deficient.
Absolutely.
I think someone made the phrase once that a carrot today it's not the same as a carrot from say 1950 or before 1940.
Absolutely.
That you would have to eat the equivalent of 4 carrots today to equate to 1 carrot that maybe our great grandmother and great grandfather ate back in their day.
Absolutely.
Because of the actual soil, the soil itself is no longer replete with, no longer replete with
nutrients,
the natural, vital minerals that we used to see. That today it's all chemicalized through, herbicides, pesticides, petroleum-based fertilizers, in other words, if you will. So can you talk about that?
Well, and before I answer that, I want to say the carrot that grandma ate was a cooked one, by the way. So it wasn't like we said 1 raw carrot to 4 raw carrots today. That 1 carrot that grandma ate, she cooked it. And there was no problems, there was no issues with the cooking of the vegetation. Is when we stopped eating vegetation.
It's just it wasn't overcooked.
It wasn't
in other words, it wasn't on the stove for a half hour.
Well, even the overcooked foods that they were eating, a lot of them were still a lot healthier than us because we're not even eating food anymore. We're just eating chemicals. It's a real insult to say a fast food restaurant. It's not even food in the first place. Isn't it food? Well, in the raw class, we define food as that which the cells benefit from, that which feeds the cells. If you pick up a loaf of bread and there's no nutrients in that loaf of bread, what did it do for you to eat that? If you go to a restaurant and get one of their hamburgers or cheeseburgers, there's no nutrients in it. And if you're like one of my relatives, he would get a hamburger and take the tomato and throw it out the window. So even the chance of nutrition that he had, he got rid of that.
Yipes. Well, wait a minute. What about the cheese?
Oh, well, the cheese is not raw cheese. It's not the cheese that, we're not talking about a feta cheeseburger. We're talking about something more like, deli slices.
Processed cheese. Okay, that's what I wanted to say.
Right.
You did say processed cheese. Processed cheese is not the same as the cheese that you're talking about.
It doesn't even claim to be. Okay. It says processed cheese food. This is them admitting this is not a real food product.
I.e.
Right.
Chemical.
Exactly.
Rendition.
You don't even have to refrigerate it. It's just there in the middle of the aisle. You go to a store and it's just sitting there. How? This is a dairy product. So, I mean...
I noticed that, I made the comment, this was about 10 years ago, that about the grocery store, just any chain, no matter what. But I made the comment that really when you're in the grocery store, the only groceries are in the produce section.
Right, that's a good point. That's an excellent point.
The rest
is chemicals. It's not even really food at all.
Yes.
So and then the insult of a grocery store to say health food section. Consumers, what?
So even that is a problem.
What is it going to take? You're being insulted openly. Health food section.
That should make a person question.
So what is the rest? Death food? This is health food, that's death food. And in line with what you just said, all of the fruits, that should really be the only health food section of the store. The rest of it is just products.
Right. Made up concoctions of, just chemicals.
Yeah, I mean the whole fact that you can sell a product that's a juice product and say contains no fruit juice, but say completely natural. America.
See that a lot.
If we do not understand how idiotic that is to say what is natural about this product? Well, they didn't lie completely. Water was used to make it. So they're playing games here. But see, this is what the Narak class comes is to give you the scientific knowledge. This is why our logo is an eye, because we're coming to open the eyes. We're shedding light, which is the sun in our logo, on the fact that we've been just taught a bunch of misinformation.
And that's what your 9-week course touches on.
Absolutely.
The foods, the types of foods, and what we should be, putting into our bodies.
The what and the how. The what we should be putting in our body and how it should be prepared, how we should eat it. Right. So it's both. Both of those are essential, what and how.
So that has to be carefully laid out, because even the things that we think are edible, whether we are meat eaters, vegetarians, or vegans, there's still certain vegetables, I would say.
Yes, that's vegetables that are not even made for human consumption.
Is that okay?
So,
all right. So you go over that in your 9
yes,
course as well.
We talk about that.
Wow.
Because just because something grows in nature does not make it digestible for the human being. We're not the only thing on the earth that's eating. So, they found I'll tell you a good example, kind of a simple example of this. There's a sweetener. I used to work at a health food store. We would sell. It came from cactus. It's a cactus juice. It's a substitute sweetener, and it was really good. And whoever was scientist enough to extract that, I applaud them. But you couldn't go and take a bite out of a cactus itself. It grows out of the ground. Sure, it's green, but does that mean that it's made for human consumption just because of the fact? I mean, could you go make a poison ivy salad? It grows, it's green, So I'm saying so we talk about this under the title of the class called Slave Foods.
Whoa.
And we go into the history of how we came into contact as a people with a lot of these foods that we're referring to as soul food was actually foods that we only ate them because we didn't have access to anything else.
Oh, I can see it now. I can see everybody flipping this video off right now.
Absolutely.
You just tuned about 1,000 people off right now.
So then you go on because we're in the information age, so now everybody's an expert. So you go on Google and you type in collard greens, and it's going to show you all of the nutrients that are in there. They are not lying to you when they say that those nutrients are in there, but the density of the nutrient and the fact that the cellulose of the plant itself does not break down. I mean, anytime you have a plant, something with moisture, like you go and prick a leaf, moisture should come out if it's a real plant, right? So you take that plant and you boil it for hours.
Hours on the stove.
And you can still take it and see that it's a plant, that the leaf, it didn't break down. It got softer, of course, because it's water. So this kind of a food is gonna only be roughage in the body. So it's gonna go in, you're gonna get some nutrients from the juice, the nutrients that came out into the water, but it really didn't do the body any good. We could see you boiling something dry like a navy bean, a lentil, a black bean for hours to soften it, but not something that's already soft. So we talk about foods that were not designed for human consumption, and these are really slave foods, foods that we picked up during slavery that we have made a part of our culture. And just because you watch a particular doctor's show that comes on TV and he said that kale green was good does not make kale green digestible to the human body. And I know kale is I just closed a lot of ears with that because kale is one of the big popular things that
kale. You hear quite a bit out there in regards to kale. Kale is like at the top of the list.
Absolutely.
Of vegetables to consume when you're trying to switch to a more healthy lifestyle. So kale is off the list.
Kale is off the list. That would be a food that in the raw cleanse 9-week program, I would say do not eat the vegetable called kale.
Wow.
Because the vitamin K content of these foods, most of the green leaf vegetables, were not designed for our bodies. Now, if you were a cattle, if you were something that had 4 stomachs, sure, that's a food for you, but you don't have 4 stomachs.
Good point.
So these are just some of the things, and I give substitutes for everything that we take away. So there's ways that you can make a whole soul food dinner and just use different stuff. You don't have to have collard greens. You can have spinach. You don't have to have candied yams. You can have carrots. It tastes just the same. You can take wheat pasta, rice pasta, and make brown rice pasta and make macaroni and cheese out of that. Use real cheese. Not that other processed cheese, creamy stuff. You can make dressing out of cream of wheat instead of cornmeal. There's alternatives. But what we have to do, we have to be willing to accept change. A lot of times our habits are just so embedded. We talk about that in the appetite versus hunger class where it talks about neuropeptides. We've been eating this way our whole life, and we have so many associative images that come with the food. It's not even the food itself. We try to get scientific and say, well, yams, but that's not why you're eating it. You're eating it because you have an association of being at grandma's house. And she came and brought you your plate and you remember sopping up the green juice with the cornbread at your cousin's house. And all of this is what's going into your mind, stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with nutrition.
And we're forgetting the fact that there was a time, where, if you go back far enough, somebody looked at that and said, you mean to tell me I gotta eat that?
Exactly.
To survive?
Our forefathers.
Okay, so
our forefathers in the midst of a deprived state of life, being primarily plant eaters from back home, we stuck to the ground. we weren't given the best food to eat. So we said, well, you know, it's either that or let's just take these greens and cook them.
Okay.
But you don't, but when you go to various parts of the continent, you don't find, except where America has influenced them, you don't find where you can go over there and ask for soul food dinner and somebody gonna bring you out some collard greens.
Well, then that would explain why when you talk about or you look at the menu of a soul food diet, that it is totally different from anything that you see in other cultures around the world.
All you got to do is go to an international food fair, which I've attended a lot of. I mean, it's so interesting that everybody has a culture. It's just so evident of the fact that we've been robbed of everything. Because when it comes to Senegalese, and I've worked at some of these, you know, places too,
Mm-hmm.
and they all have their staples. Now, not all of them are healthy. I'm not saying that, but they have something.
Even they have been touched by something that has altered their cultural diet.
Exactly.
And now they're starting to see some of the symptoms that we face over here in the United States.
If these particular, McDevils and, White Casket and Murder King and Hearst's Chicken and all these places start showing up in your culture, pharmaceutical stores are going to show up too. Hospitals are going to increase. I remember when I was getting at the hospital delivering my youngest child, and the doctor was from India. She had practiced Ayurvedic medicine over there. And she came in the room and she saw all the fruits and the blackstrap molasses and stuff that I had. Mm-hmm. And she was saying, "What your way of life reminds me a lot of back home." And she mentioned Ayurveda. And I said, "Well, I studied Ayurveda for a while, And she said that the Ayurvedic doctors are like witch doctors now back home. It's not something that's really sought out. They started to bring more Western medicine in, and I told her, your country just committed suicide by doing that.
Well, not just her culture and her people back at home in India,
Mm-hmm.
but even with Eastern medicine, Chinese medicine,
Mm-hmm.
Even African medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone,
Mm-hmm.
would you be willing to go as far as to say that anyone that introduces a wholly Western conventional medicine practice into the culture, you begin to see that culture increase with disease and death?
Well, one thing you got to understand about because. Well, the thing you have to understand about how that works is that you wouldn't even really have a need for that system of medicine unless the diet was introduced.
Okay.
So that's the way it works. You don't go into a culture where people are eating according to Ayurveda and can set up a pharmaceutical drugstore. There would be no need for it because the way they eat wouldn't produce arthritis, obesity, circulatory issues, high blood pressure. You see, one thing I can say about the Chinese, there's a little part here locally, the Chinatown here. They have stores and they have their own medicines. They have herbs where they go. You never see them at the pharmaceutical drugstores, even once they come here. But they eat the same way that they ate back home. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying that without the standard American diet, you don't have a base for their medicinal system. Mm-hmm. So yes, any culture that abandons its nutritional practices and then embraces that, because in order for that medicinal system to work, you have to be eating wrong. See, this is what people don't realize. The whole basis of that is eating wrong. So there's very few doctors that you can go to today. I'm not saying there aren't any, but it's very few that are going to write you a prescription and say, if you really want your high blood pressure medicine, if you really want to get rid of high blood pressure, eat more garlic, eat more onions. He's not been, and I'm not going to even say it's all ill intent. They haven't been trained to say that. They haven't been trained to say that. They've been trained to say, okay, here's a prescription, go get this.
That's basically all it is today. Yeah. The doctor may take some vital signs, tell you what hurts. The next thing you know, they're already got the pen and paper out writing you out a prescription.
Absolutely.
So your doctor visit is not necessarily them doing it. They have the chart out from your previous visits and whatnot. But it just seems as though that you know, the visit is quick. It gets you in and get you out.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then they send you on your way with a little piece of paper to take down to the drugstore, and that's supposed to eliminate all your problems, all your worries.
Right. I mean, the biggest evidence of that is you have fast food restaurants that are in the hospitals. Here in this city, you can go as you're there right after your surgery and go downstairs and get a pizza in the same place. So obviously, nutrition is not the focal point here.
So you're telling us that we're overthinking, overdoing, that it's a state of health can be a much more simple process?
It can be a completely simple process. It's as simple as this. Let your medicine be, and I didn't originate this, I know, but it's true. And it stands the test of time. Let your food be your medicine, and your medicine be your food. We don't even have to say medicine, though, because medicine implies a state of sickness. If you are eating a particular way, you will not get sick. Sickness is not a normal, natural part of life. That's what the Moroccan is.
Say that again?
Sickness is not a normal and natural part of life. I know that just ruffled all our belief systems because we've been all accustomed to sickness, but we've also been all eating incorrectly. If you eat a particular way, if you make a regular practice of fasting, a regular practice of cleansing the blood, sickness will not show up in your experience.
That's what, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. The importance of fasting. What is fasting?
Okay, good question. And I have a video that's on the YouTube channel called What Defines a True Fast. Go and watch that video and I'll elaborate a little more. But to answer your question, what is fasting? First of all, why the term fast? Why did the ancients use a term, something that applies to speed, to indicate this process of cleansing the body? Because when the system becomes idle, the life force in the body moves faster. In the life force of the body moving faster, the fasting of that cleanses the blood and the cells in the system. But that can't happen unless the system is idle. So if you're doing a fruit fast, guess what? You're not doing a fruit fast. There's no such thing as that.
You're eating fruit.
You're eating fruit. That's how you did.
Take the word fast.
Yeah, you're just doing a fruit diet for a certain amount of days.
Okay.
Not a fast, because fasting does not happen until the system slows down. It's like you have to slow down to speed up. So once the system becomes idle, the life force kicks in. And if you're sensitive enough, you'll feel it. You know, we on the fast presently.
Yes.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. You can feel energy moving from cell to cell. And the longer that we go, the more that's going to happen. So fasting is the complete abstinence from nourishment. Complete, meaning nothing is feeding the body.
Well, how is that beneficial? In other words, if you talk about fasting, what pops up in my mind is, well, if I fast too much, then isn't that the same as like starving myself?
Well, sure, there has to be balance, That's not to say that somebody should just, go months without eating. But the only reason that it really is not harmful to us is because we're already overeating. See, the deficit that you described earlier, we're coming with the deficit of already overindulging. So the average person has enough food in the folds of his intestines to live for months. Most Americans have never experienced starvation. And I'm not talking about somebody that's impoverished or homeless. I'm talking about even those people, if you've been eating the standard American diet, most of us are not even equated with what we think is hunger. We have never been hungry.
Okay, let me stop you right there and say this, that a lot of other forms of medicine or doctors would say that one of the main causes for weight gain is the fact that the foods that we consume are nutritionally deficient.
Absolutely.
And so therefore, the weight gain is caused by our systems trying to hold on to what we do put into it so we can store it and use it for later.
Well,
Thinking that we're because we're constantly in a starvation mode.
A little bit of that, but more so that the stuff not being food, the body doesn't even know what to do with it. So it's like, what is it be like if I just gave you this, season this up and say, here, bro. Your body's like, what is this? You know,
eat it.
Just put that over there.
Eat some fast food that's got sawdust and other fillers in it.
Yeah. So your body takes it and just puts it over to the side, and that is constantly happening. So you just are a big waste basket that needs to take out the trash.
Okay.
Simple as that. Take out the trash.
And you show your students and your patients how
to take out the trash.
Okay.
And that fasting is one of the systematic approaches to that. Fasting and fasting with the right foods, meaning once you do eat, you should be eating to cleanse. So basically, my class is a trade-off of some light fasting and cleansing in between fasts. So when you're eating foods that are going to make you eliminate, then you stop. Utilize the law of rest, let the digestive system rest, then go back to eating again. Eat to cleanse, then stop, rest, go back to fasting. In the process, the body is like, yes, you're going to feel better. Your system, your cells will be celebrating the fact that you got it. I mean, just think about it. When the average person gets sick, what is usually the first thing that you lose? The appetite is the first thing you go.
Yes.
You always have to force yourself to eat once you get sick. That's because the body is naturally telling you stop.
Stop eating at this.
Stop eating. Sometimes it'll even give you a toothache, thinking, okay, well maybe if you can't chew, maybe you'll stop. We'll just chew with the other side of the mouth.
Right. We blow through that signal.
Right. Okay. And then wonder why we get worse and worse. I had a healing crisis that happened last year where there was a little bit of an abscess or something that was trying to develop, and I felt it coming. And I immediately stopped eating. I said, well, that's time for a fast. And I'm a regular faster. But we're in a toxic environment where we're constantly under attack, so nobody is exempt from cleansing. So I stopped eating, and within 24 hours, the pain was completely gone. And I did some other stuff externally to apply to it, and it was gone just like that. But I got the message. The message was, do not chew nothing else.
Yes. Well, let's, I guess we can quickly turn as we come to a close.
Let me mention this because I didn't totally answer the question earlier. We talked about soil depletion. That is very, very, very vital. And the DRDETOX's answer to that is to use, after you cleanse, to use whole food supplements. Whole food, like concentrated bases of the fruits and vegetables. And in week 9, we talk about that. We talk about which nutrients, what are the best vitamins on the market. Not even so much vitamins, but whole food supplements.
Right.
You have to supplement in a culture like this.
So you also use various herbs.
Absolutely.
Medicinal herbs.
Absolutely.
As well as herbs used in cooking,
yes.
food.
Yes.
Herbs that are used for food.
Yeah, because there's the nutritional herbs and there's medicinal herbs.
Okay.
Medicinal herbs shouldn't be used nutritionally all the time. And a lot of people are finding that out when they use products that have, say, I use a really, really, really popular one, the Ganoderma mushroom, which is in a particular coffee product. I won't mention the name, but the people know what I'm talking about. And this product has been used in ancient time, medicine, 5,000 years at least, and it is a good replenisher of the blood, builder of the immune system. But the problem with it is that in this particular medicinal herb, do what we call boosting the immune system. Makes the immune system go into overactivity in an attempt to help the immune system fight off disease. But the problem with that is that when you keep boosting the immune system and don't turn it off, now the immune system will begin to attack you. It's like a fighter squad, a army killer squad that you just sent in, and they train to do one thing, to demolition squad. So then when you bring them back home, you don't deprogram them. So they come home and become criminals. They're killing your population up. So your immune system is the same way. But when you use particular medicinal herbs as nutritional herbs, you do the body damage. All things are not made to be used. That's why they're called medicinal herbs. They're medicine for when you're sick. But say a nutritional herb like garlic can be eaten every day. You can't eat echinacea every day. You can eat cayenne pepper every day. Ginger every day. You can't eat shiitake mushrooms every day. That's a herb that they use to treat cancer patients. You can't do that every day. So these are the things. This is why having the proper knowledge of this is so important. So that was my answer.
All right, good. I'm glad you addressed that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, as we come to the end of this interview discussion here, can you tell us about colon therapies? What are they?
Like colonic irrigation.
Yes, colonics and whatnot. What is your opinion or your stance on?
Well, I have a very, very harsh stance about this, and there is a place for colonic irrigation. But let's say if I had a health center, a wellness center, the way I would use the colonic irrigation would be only in extreme cases, emergency cases where the person is so impacted that they have to have an elimination today. Okay. To me, the colonic irrigation is an emergency technique, because in my experience, what I found, even among my students, is that people are robbed of the psychological effect of the damage done during colonic irrigation, especially if it's like an open system where it's very gentle, the waste is coming out. You might see it go through those pipes. But I want you to see it in the toilets too. When you see this, when it comes out and it looks like this, that's going to change you. And I think that the shock value of seeing that is more important than even the cleanse itself, because I would be willing to bet money that statistics would show that people that get regular colonics are people that get regular colonics. They keep doing it because it becomes a crutch in a culture like this. It doesn't advocate discipline in anything. So you can say, okay, well, matter of fact, when I did my first colonic, I was on the way, there was a group of us, and the group went to Lee's Chicken before we went to the colonic place. And the idea was that we're about to clean it out anyway. See, when you take my class and you see the eliminations that this product is going to produce, you're not going to want to go back to that place again. Because you're going to say, that came out of me? So yes, colonic irrigation, kalimas, enemas, all of the coffee enemas, like the great naturopath Gershom in the 20s was using the coffee enemas to cleanse the body and reverse all kind of cancers and stuff like that. These things have their place, but my thing is that the way that we got constipated is the same way that we should get unconstipated, by using gravity. We didn't take a cheeseburger and liquefy it and shoot it up this way. We ate it.
Correct.
So you didn't take the pizza and put it up that way. So now you need to eat and bring it out the same way that you put it in. Gravity says what goes up comes down. So a product like this is going to go in, eating it, right, and go out and bring the waste with it. And hopefully when you see it, you'll say, I know I've been changed. So.
Well, I want to thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
This was very enlightening, sir.
Yes, sir.
And look forward to having more interviews and discussions about health and wellness.
Thank you.